All right, with that out of the way, turning things over to the wonderful Leah.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thanks so much. Hi, everybody. Um, yeah, like Bonnie said, if anyone has any questions, just chat and she'll interrupt me as I'm going because I don't want to miss your question in the midst of doing what you have a question about. So ask away. And yeah, my name is Leah, and I'm the founder of this company, Natural Earth Paint, 15 years, almost 15 years ago. And I started it just based out of necessity, really, because I was a full-time oil painter and I got pregnant with my first baby. And for some reason, even though I had been interested in trying to figure out how to eliminate all toxins, getting pregnant actually pushed me into doing it. And I just immediately started researching how to eliminate every single toxin from the oil painting process. And how did the old masters do it, before they had turpentine and solvents and synthetic pigments? And so I just started researching. There wasn't much out there 15 years ago, but I found one out of print book that had a lot of information. I started looking at old Renaissance recipes, how they did it, and looking at the artists whose paintings have, stayed the test of time and they're still beautiful today. What paints did they use and how did they make their paints? And so that's how it all started. I started harvesting my pigments in nature in Southern Oregon and uh, hiking through the woods and looking for creek cuts where you could see the strata of earth and minerals and road cuts. In Oregon, there's lots of roads that have been cut into mountains. So you can see strata of all the different earth and mineral colors, and jumping out of my car with my trowel and my baggie and harvesting pigments and bringing them home and grinding and sifting and mixing with plant-based binders. And so I did that throughout my pregnancy and created this large one-woman show just from these paintings, actually a week before I gave birth. And and then when my child was about 1 year old, it hit me that none of my artist friends knew about this, and I needed to spread the word that you could create oil paintings that were more archival and light fast and luminous and humidity resistant and UV resistant than synthetic petroleum based paints. So, and you could easily eliminate all the other toxins that we normally use too. So that's why I started the business all those years ago. And we just started out with an oil painting kit and a children's paint kit for me and my child. So that's how we started out. And now, all these years later, we have over 50 products. We do natural plant-based acrylic paints. We do an eco solvent and a completely natural plant-based varnish, a full array of pigments, a whole variety of products. But this class today about oil painting is really my heart because that's my passion is oil painting, and that's how I started this whole business. So we will start with that. So today I'm going to teach you how to make your own natural oil paint and also just how to eliminate all the toxins we normally use and some other tips along the way. If we have time, I can do how to tube your oil paint, how to clean your brushes naturally. So I think I'll just go ahead and flip my screen to my palette and then start demoing and also just explaining the benefits of using making your own oil paint. Unless we have any questions so far.
We do actually have one in the chat. Do you know if these paints are, or the pigments that you would then turn into paint, are compatible when using an encaustic medium?
Yes, many people buy our pigments to make their encaustics. And we actually have a recipe on our website. If you go to naturalearthpaint.com and click on resources, then you'll see a link for recipes. And there's over 40 recipes in there of different art supplies that you can make just using natural pigments and plant-based binders. And encaustics is on there. And we have 20 different pigment colors, natural pigment colors, and they're all different colors. So lots of people think it's mostly earth colors or browns and reds, and but it's actually beautiful blues and greens and purples, and so yeah. Anything
All
else?
right. Yeah, I just put a link to that in the chat, and I can also include that in the follow-up email if people want that.
Great.
All right, and I think that is good, and we are ready to see the top-down view.
Okay, this is going to be kind of crazy because this is everyone look away for a moment. All right, and how is that, Bonnie?
That looks good. It looks like we can see everything. We can see the your medium, we can see your Muller. All of that is visible.
Okay, great. All right, I will just start. All right, so a lot of people, when they start making their oil paint, will get this set. It's a complete eco-friendly oil paint set, and Opus has this. And it comes with 10 colors. It comes with a guide for exactly how to eliminate all toxins from the process and mix your paint. It has 10 pigments and a bottle of walnut oil and EcoSolve, which I'll talk about later. But that is usually how people start. And then after that, usually they transition to buying the individual pigments themselves so they can pick what they want. We sell these 3 ounce packets and also just full 1 pound bags if you want to buy in bulk and save more money. And then walnut oil. So super simple ingredients. EcoSolve is what I'll talk about a little bit later, but this is really a game changer as far as eliminating all mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits, to just have a completely plant-based, non-toxic, fresh cleaner and paint thinner that works super great. This has been one of our best sellers for probably 12 years now, so that's a great one. But today I'm going to start with the oil paint, and I think I'll just do the very classic red ochre, probably the most famous earth pigment. We call it Venetian red, but this is just harvested from a family-owned quarry for many generations in France. And we get a lot of our colors from this one quarry just because they have beautiful colors in the ground in this one area of France. Beautiful yellows and reds. And so that's where this comes from. So I'll just start the mixing process and then keep talking as I do it. But Bonnie, definitely interrupt me if anyone has questions. So I'm going to start with just scooping a mound of this pigment onto a palette. And this is a glass palette. I recommend glass palettes or any non-porous surface. So it could be granite or anything just non-porous. So you wouldn't want to use wood or paper or anything like that. But glass is my favorite just because it cleans up so well. So you can scoop out any amount you want. And lots of people ask, exactly how much oil do I add to this? And that's a tricky question because every single pigment has different molecular structure, different chemical composition. They're very different, every single natural pigment. And so they each have different characteristics where they absorb different amounts of oil. Like Terre Verte, green earth absorbs a lot of oil, and yellow ochre absorbs maybe a medium amount. Red ochre absorbs a lot. So really, for each color, you can just add the oil bit by bit until it makes a thick paste. It's really as simple as that. So you,
And
oh,
oh,
good,
do you have to wear a mask when you are handling the powders?
good question. You can see that I did not create any airborne dust as I was scooping. I was just very carefully scooping this paint. So I don't wear a mask, but anyone with any type of lung sensitivity or concern about dust particles should totally wear a mask, however you see fit. It's never good to inhale any type of pigment or any type of dust into your lungs. Like if you were walking down a dusty road and a car drove by, you would want to cover your face because you don't want to inhale any type of dust. That's all bad for your lungs. So even though it's natural and non-toxic, um, yeah, be careful. If you're using toxic pigments, heavy metal pigments, definitely, absolutely wear a mask. But for these, I never wear masks because I'm just being careful and I'm not creating big clouds of dust. So, yeah. All right, so I am going to just to start out pour in a little oil into that little volcano. And then I just start mixing into the center. And one thing you want to watch out for is not accidentally pouring too much oil and then having to backtrack, like add more pigment. I do that a lot. And so it's just a warning. So sometimes after I pour in that initial amount of oil, I'll then switch to a dropper so that I'm using I have a little more control over it. Because you just want to get to that thick paste and not go past that. If you if you do add too much oil and have to backtrack, um, it's not a huge deal, but they say that it could cause um, like not be as stable as a paint, like have a little bit of stability issues or adhesion issues. But so
Just some questions from the chat, all about the oil process. So first of all, um, this is a walnut oil, correct?
yeah,
That you're
sorry.
using? Okay.
Yeah.
No, just reminding. So someone in the chat was mentioning linseed oil. Do you find that this has like the walnut oil, does it have a scent to it?
I don't find that it has any scent at all. Yeah, let me just nope, I don't smell anything at all. I mean, highly sensitive people might smell something, but I don't. And the reason we use walnut oil instead of linseed oil is because it's a little bit less yellowing and it's a little more archival than linseed oil. So that's why we use that. Although it is slower drying than linseed oil. So some people prefer linseed oil, which is totally fine to use linseed oil too. Um, I generally like to use slower drying oils for mixing the paint because then it'll stay wet longer on your palette or in your tube, before it dries out. So that's why we use that. Was there other questions about that, Bonnie?
Yeah. Do you ever find that there's such a thing as adding too much oil when you're mixing? Someone is wondering about adding quite a lot of oil just to play with opacity or, other mediums to help play with the opacity. Do you have any sort of experience with that?
I don't know about adding too much oil affecting the opacity. If because pigments in their own nature are either opaque pigments or they're more transparent pigments or they're semi-transparent pigments. So you can't really
I
change that.
think what they might be talking about is making like a glaze with the paint. Is that something you could do at like this level, at like the mixing level, or is that something you'd want to do sort of like on the palette while you're painting, adding like a glazing medium to it?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, you can totally do that. And actually, Rembrandt himself mixed his paint very thin because he painted in more thin glazing layers. And so he didn't even do this thick paste. He went right to a thin paint just so he wouldn't have to thin it later. Um, so yes, you can do that, or you could mix into a thick paste so that you can then store it in a tube as a thick paste and then squeeze it out and add more oil later to do the glazing. Does that answer that question?
I believe it does. Yeah, if that the person does still have any questions, please feel free to let us know. Um, Also, we have another question about do you clean the dropper after you're done using it? And if so, how do you clean it?
That's a really good question. I have that same question. I should Google that. I usually don't clean it because I don't know how. And so, but it's fine with walnut oil. I find it, if I just make sure that all of the oil is out at the end of the day, then it's fine and it doesn't get clogged up. So if I leave some oil in there, it will clog up, but and if anyone else on the call, though, has a good answer to that, I'm all ears too.
Um, Oh, and actually, would you be comfortable sharing the name of the quarry that you're getting the ochre pigments from, or is that like proprietary information?
Oh no, it's fine. It's called Ochre de France. OCRESDE France. And you can see their website. They have really great sustainable harvesting practices where they don't create excess pollution or water pollution. And so we always really investigate the sourcing habits of these of the quarries that we work with to make sure that it's not causing excessive damage or of course it is using earth's materials and so we acknowledge that but yeah we don't want any pollution to be created. All right, so this is looking like a pretty good paste. So at this point I'll transition to a glass muller. um I usually tell people, I mean, when I was taught how to mix your own paint in art school in Italy, they just taught me with a palette knife. We didn't even use a glass muller. So if anyone is wondering, do I have to get the glass muller? You don't necessarily have to. You can kind of simulate it by doing this, like a circular pushing down motion. But basically, you just want to get every single particle of pigment completely coated in oil. Because if there's any air pockets in there, then it could potentially crack your painting in the future. So that's the goal is to just get every single air pocket out and every particle coated. And but the benefit of the glass muller is that it just does it faster. It just um, so it eliminates a lot of mixing time. Although it really is only about gosh 2 to 5 minutes of mixing per color, I find. So it's not that big of a deal. But this is, just makes it a little bit more efficient and quick and also, if you're making a like a full tube of paint, then this is just faster and easier to use a glass muller. So I'll put that to the side. And you can just lay it on top and start a circular motion. And I'm not pushing down at all. Like the pigments have already been ground to the finest they're going to go. So I'm not grinding the pigment. I'm just coating the pigment. So I'm not pushing down at all. Just making kind of some people do like a figure eight and some people do lots of circles and normally I do this on my big glass palette that's attached to the table, which is nice because this creates a suction, which you'll see when I pull it off. There's like a suction that happens. So it's kind of nice that it's attached to the table. So this first round, I just did a quick mix and then I'm just going to scrape it off. the molar and then start again. I usually do it 2 to 3 times, depending on how it's looking, how smooth it looks. Just scrape it back into the middle and then I start again. And then go in circles. So one reason that it's good to make your own oil paint is that you can avoid all toxins that are in some conventional oil paints that you get in the store. Because paints that are in a store need to have a very long shelf life. We want to make sure they don't separate in the tube and grow mold. And people want to make sure that most of the paints dry at the same rate. So there's uh, different additives that are added to oil paint in tubes, different chemical dryers, solvents, preservatives, stabilizers, so they don't separate. So just different additives, and then bulking agents and fillers are often added to just basically create more paint to make more money for the manufacturer and make more paint. So it's a lot of different things that could be added in there that not only will cause toxicity for you and your skin and the planet when you wash it down the drain, but also will just detract from the pure pigment. So all these additives and bulking agents will just get in the way of the pure pigment and oil.
So, do you find when you're mixing, because we have two questions basically about how much powder do you sort of put out and how much walnut oil do you use? Do you find it sort of is there an exact ratio per pigment, or is it kind of a like you need to feel the right consistency kind of a thing?
Yeah, if you want a ratio, I can say that generally it's about 30% by volume of oil to pigment, around that 30% of oil to pigment, or you can say a 1 to 5 ratio of oil to pigment. But like I was saying in the beginning, that every pigment has different properties and absorbs different amounts of oil or needs different amounts of oil in order to get this paste. So it really is just look and feel, and you're not gonna. It's very forgiving. Like you don't have to be exact. It's very forgiving. And so yeah, that's why I use the dropper to just drop in little bits of the time at a time until it's a good paste. And that generally does it. So you don't have to be totally exact. And you can even figure it like if you find in your own home practice that, oh, I found that 2 tablespoons of pigment to 1 teaspoon of oil is perfect for terra verte. You can take a note of that and just remember for next time. All right, so this is, I think, done. It looks good to me. Um, as I scrape this up, let's see, what else can I tell you? Yeah, some other benefits to mixing your own paint is you avoid toxic pigments. So heavy metal pigments, toxic, not all synthetic pigments are toxic, but lots are. So you could avoid those. You can have control over the consistency of your paint, the opacity of your paint, um, just all the different properties. You have control. And so that's always really nice for people. And I think I was saying before, earth pigments are the most archival. I mean, if you think about the cave paintings that are still beautiful today, they use the same red earth. and the Renaissance paintings and the medieval illuminated manuscripts and Egyptian paintings and all of these cultures throughout the centuries have used these pigments and they just last forever. So it's pretty unique, not to mention that they're eco-friendly.
So actually to that extent, do you ever find that your palette of colors with like just using earth pigments, do you ever find that that sort of is limited? Or do you find that actually there's not that much limiting you when you are working with these colors?
That's a great question. Yeah, lots of people think that it's mostly just earth tones. And if you look at our website, we have 20 colors right now, and they are radiant. There we have uh, lots of beautiful turquoise, blue, purples, several greens. Um, we actually have a few colors that have been manipulated, but they're still mostly natural. We have a Mayan red that's a primary red that's mostly limestone powder, calcium carbonate, with a mineral affixed to it, a mineral pigment affixed to it. So there's a few pigments we have that have been manipulated, but still using natural ingredients. Um, but yeah, I find that we have a primary yellow, primary red, um, beautiful, vibrant ultramarine blues and purples. So I find that you're not very limited.
And
Now,
actually, oh, we do have
oh,
a couple of questions. Are you able to combine store-bought paint, so like pre-mixed paint with these pigments or these paints themselves? And also, can you mix the color powders together? So let's say you have the yellow and you've got the ultramarine blue. Can you sort of mix them together at the pigment stage? So sort of like when you're making the paint to make a new color?
yeah, that's a great question. Generally, I say it's better to mix the straight pigments into a paint and then mix the paints together later because there's an interesting thing. Like if I were to mix this blue and green together in a bowl, the pigment, it wouldn't look anything like what the final color will look like. So you can't really tell what the color will look like based on two pigments mixed together. So I generally say just mix the individual pure pigments into tubes or containers, and then yeah. So, but some people do find that they know from experience that 1.5 tablespoons of blue mixed with a quarter tablespoon of green makes a color that they really love. So they can just do that quickly and they know what will happen. Oh, tell me the first question again. Sorry.
Oh, can you mix these with like other pre-mixed oil paints?
Yes, absolutely. These mix perfectly with all pre-mixed oil paints. So lots of people do a combination. They use some colors that are straight from the tube and some colors that they mix themselves. And some people even combine that with harvesting their own. Like they'll harvest their own pigments in nature and sift and grind and have those in jars. And they'll use some store-bought tubes and they'll use some of our pigments that they can't find in their area. So, yeah, so you can totally combine them all.
And actually, we've got a couple other questions. These are kind of just like assorted ones. Uh, what kind of like what other additives are often in oil paints that sort of are toxic besides just the solvents that are used? Are you able to give some examples?
Yeah, so the pigments, sometimes they can be heavy metal pigments, so cadmium, cobalt, lead, I have a list on my website actually of if you are going to use store-bought paints, avoid these colors. So we have that list on there. And I can go in later into my health struggles from when I was in art school and painted in my studio with all the windows closed, and I had no knowledge about toxicity and used the cadmiums and the cobalts and all the paints. Got it on my skin, breathed it in. And then later in my 40s, had all these health problems and had a heavy metal lab test done, blood test, and found, guess what? Cadmium, cobalt, and lead all in my body. And so I had to do a year of these intensive chelation treatments with IVs and me. And so, anyway, I just want everyone to avoid that. And other things that people add to oil paint are stabilizers, different chemical additives to keep the paint from separating in the tube. If you've ever opened a tube of oil paint and some oil came out first, um, manufacturers try to avoid that. So the separation. Um, chemical dryers like cobalt dryers can be added to make the different paints dry relatively, because some pigments, all pigments dry at different rates. For example, burnt umber dries way faster than titanium white. And so some manufacturers will add in some additives to make them a little bit more similar so they're not drying at drastically different rates. Preservatives can be added to inhibit mold. So yeah, that's a few examples. All right. Anything else?
Um, oh yeah, one other question, which is why do you use, I mean, you spoke on this a little bit, but if you just want to reiterate why you use walnut oil over linseed oil.
Yeah, walnut oil is slightly is yellowing over time. Or sorry, walnut oil is not yellowing over time, and linseed oil is. And so we use walnut oil just to avoid that yellowing, and also it's a little more archival, although it is slower drying. And so some people prefer linseed oil for the actual painting process because it dries faster. Some people prefer walnut oil, but I prefer walnut oil for mixing because we want this to stay wet on our palette as long as possible. I can go into that now of how to store your paint once you've mixed it. Um, for me, I tend to just mix about this amount of paint once a week, and then I'll have my whole palette will have all my paint blobs. And I know that I'll probably use all the paint within a week, and it'll take over a week to dry. So I can just easily just leave it out on my palette open to the air. So that's what I do. Um, Also, you can tube it in aluminum tubes, and we sell these. I think Opus sells these, but these can go. You can get these anywhere. So you can put them in there, and they stay good indefinitely. You can also. Some people get a little square of aluminum foil, and they'll scoop this into the aluminum foil and fold it up, and that will keep it good. Some people will get a small glass, like jar, baby food jar or something, and then put a dab of clove oil in the lid, not mixed in, but just in the lid, and the clove oil will keep it wet a long time. Some people will put like a plastic palette holder over their palette with a cotton ball with some clove oil on the cotton ball in there. And that will keep the paint wet longer. Some people put it in the refrigerator with a lid over it, like inside of a palette box. So there's lots of different ways to keep your oil paint wet. And yeah.
So,
So,
oh,
okay.
we do also have a question. The texture that the paint is at right now, it's almost like is it as thick as it looks, or is it actually much like a thinner consistency? It's just very piled up on itself.
It's I'm not sure I understand that question, but
Oh, just like what's the consistency of the paint? Someone was mentioning that it's almost closer to, I don't know if you're familiar as much with acrylics, but it's closer to like if you've added sort of like a gel medium to it, because it's very, it's holding its shape on the
yeah,
palette. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so this is a good consistency because yeah, it's holding its form. You can see it's holding that peak right there. And so it's a good, like, nice impasto consistency. And this is what I usually aim for, where it's holding its form. I find that if I add too much oil and it's too thin, and then I try to go backwards and add more pigment, it's hard to even get it back to this place for some reason. So that's why I add drops at a time. But yeah, so I can go ahead and do a demo of putting this into a tube if there's interest in learning that. All right. I didn't hear anyone protesting, so I will go ahead.
Yes, I think a lot of people are very excited about that. So I was just waiting for the messages to roll in. We have actually another person who was asking earlier, is there anything else you should sort of be aware of when you're for the storage of this paint? Do you need to keep it within a certain temperature range or anything?
I don't think so. I wouldn't let it get too hot, but I mean, like I said, lots of people put it in the refrigerator just to put their whole palette in the refrigerator. So anywhere from lukewarm to cold is fine. Yeah. All right. So for an aluminum tube, there's lots of ways to do this. I've seen different ways online, and so I just use the most simplest way with the least amount of tools needed. I'll grab an extra palette knife and use that. I'll show you in a minute. So normally, if I was filling a tube, I would have a lot more paint mixed. I would probably do this entire packet. Usually, a 3 ounce packet will fill a tube. I think this is a 2 ounce tube. So 3 ounces of pigment is a good amount to mix up. And then I'll just start scooping it in. So just try to get down in there as much as you can. Again, normally I would have a lot more paint. And then I'll do I'm not sure if you can see this, but I'll do a tapping motion just to try to get it in there. So generally you only want to fill it up to about here because once you squeeze it together, it'll squirt out the top. So I would fill it up in there to about there. And then tap it. And then I will squeeze. There's a little bit of adhesive usually at the end of a tube that you buy. And I'll squeeze it there. If there's any that squeezes out, I'll wipe it on a towel. So I'm kind of getting the air out. If I had more paint in there, it probably wouldn't go down that far. But I'm just squeezing to get the air out. And anything that squeezes out of the top, I'll just wipe. And then let me just scooch this over a little bit. Um, you can use different tools. You could use a palette knife. You could use a paint scraper. You basically just want to make a little indentation. And then fold over. And if any squeezes out again, you could dab it again. And then
Do you make labels for your paint, or do you just sort of try and remember, or like how do you sort of have a system for that?
that I am too lazy to make labels, but you could totally make labels. I usually just actually, let me grab, here's a past one. I'll dab a little bit of the paint on the edge and get a Sharpie and write it on the top. So that's as far as I go. It doesn't have to be extra special. There's a few others from the past, but that's it. And it stays great in there for years. I mean, every color is different. Some colors may separate slightly over time, but if you just use them within a year, they definitely would be fine, if not much longer. So yeah, that's that. As far as cleaning your palette, I use this scraper from just any hardware store. I always get the ones with an actual razor blade. There's some scrapers that are more dull. They don't have an actual razor blade in there, so make sure you get the razor blade. But I'll wipe off as much as I normally I use old rags and t-shirts from clothes, but for this I'm using paper towels.
And can you basically, once you've milled the paint and made sure that it's all thoroughly mixed, can you use it immediately or do you need to let it rest for a bit?
Oh no, you can use it absolutely immediately. And actually, maybe I'll do that. Well, let me just clean this up real quick and then I'll show you. I'll brush some on a surface. But this again is just a quick, easy way to clean off your palette. The glass muller also cleans really easy. You can just wipe it with a paper towel and then after that, wipe it with some EcoSolve, which I can show you that too. All right, so that's pretty quick and easy. And so EcoSolve, like I was saying, is a plant-based. It's made with soybean oil that's been processed. It's not one of those citrus solvents would people usually ask us. It's a whole different thing, and it is a great paint thinner. So I use it for washes and drips and underpaintings, anything you would normally use odorless mineral spirits for. You can use this, and it behaves pretty much the same way. The only difference is it's a little bit slower drying. Like if I put a wash on a canvas, I usually wait until the next day to start painting on it so it's dry instead of a couple hours with odorless mineral spirits. But this is a great product, and I'll pour a little bit out so you can see. This is mine that. So it's the same exact consistency, like a watery consistency. And one of the best parts of it is that it's technically not a solvent. So you can take it on an airplane, you can mail it in the mail. There's no hazard warnings that you have to declare to a flight or when shipping something. So that's really convenient when people go on art retreats or anything like that. But yeah, this is just, you can clean brushes, any type of surface, just a quick cleanup. And it has a lovely scent that I actually like. I think it smells like licorice, but people have told me different things. All right. So I'm going to do a quick brush stroke um, of the paint we just mixed up. So I think I'll use a little bit of our walnut oil. By the way, back in the old days, in the Renaissance, people used oil to clean their brushes. Vegetable oil or any oil really, but lots of people used walnut oil in particular to clean their brushes, so they didn't use the solvent at all. So that's also an option. I just find that it takes a lot longer to clean your brush with oil. EcoSolve is just fast and easy and very thorough, and also it restores your brushes. If you have dried up old bad brushes, you can leave them in EcoSolve overnight and it will restore them. So there's some benefits, but this is also an option too. And oh, and also EcoSolve will, you can recycle it just like you do with solvents. So you can use this to clean your brushes. It's all dirty with paint. And then you let this sit for a week or so, and the sediment will go to the bottom. And then you can pour the clean EcoSolve off the top and keep reusing it indefinitely. So it behaves just like regular solvent in that respect.
So
Any other questions?
another question about the EcoSolve. Can you throw the paper towels in a regular trash or like any sort of, if you're using like a mineral solvent, do you need to be careful to dispose of them so that there's no like chance for combustion?
Yeah, just all oil on rags is combustible. Even walnut oil, any oil on rags or paper towels is combustible. So, and like I was saying, this is made from soy oil. And so it is technically an oil still. So yes, it is combustible if left on rags. I've never seen it, but yeah, it potentially could happen. So I make sure to either have a lid on a metal trash can or throw rags away quickly into my garbage that's taken away, or put it in a can with water or something like that. So yes, you got to be careful with all oils on rags. Anything else about the EcoSol?
I think that's everything. Also, just two questions. We have someone wondering if you would ever consider selling the pigments already pre-mixed in like a standard tube size, sort of like you would have with other oil paints. And then also, how long can you store something in a tube? Like how long can you store paint in a tube before it starts going bad? Or have you ever found like a paint cure on its own in a tube?
Like I was saying, all oil paints and pigments dry at different rates, so they're all different. But I find that oil paint stored in tubes last at least a year, if not multiple years. So it depends on the color. Um, when I say lasts, really, it's just before it separates. So it doesn't go bad or mold or anything. It will separate in there. So, but even if it does separate, you can just squeeze it out, use a palette knife, mix it back together, and it's still good. So it's not a big deal. Um, what was the next part of that question? Sorry.
Oh, do you would you I think the first part was would you ever have any of the tubes pre-mixed into like
Oh,
the colors pre-mixed in tubes for convenience?
we've thought about that, and we would generally the philosophy of natural earth paint is to create products that don't exist yet in the world. And what we get the most requests for, like, so we get emails constantly daily from artists saying, do you have this? Do you have a natural printmaking ink? Do you have a natural varnish? Do you have a natural acrylics? So we generally just make things that there's the most requests for and that don't yet exist. So but we do want to in the future make a pre-mixed oil paint that doesn't have any of the toxic additives, and do the research to figure out how to prevent all of the issues, the separation and all of that naturally. So that's generally what we do with all of our products, is try to figure out replacements for all of these additives that are doing good things, but make sure that they're either plant-based or totally non-toxic. So, I mean, we spent the past 6 years making these natural tubed acrylic paints, just that exact same way, where we replaced the binder with a plant-based binder instead of petroleum-based. But then we spent 5 years replacing every single toxic additive. That with acrylic paint, there's up to 10 to 15 different highly toxic additives, carcinogenic, hormone disrupting, surfactants, phthalates, dispersants, defoamers, pH modifiers, rheology modifier. There's so many different things in acrylic paint that are just the added. No one knows really about the additives and how toxic they are. They think more about the base and the pigment. So anyway, that's what we do. We just made a natural modeling paste. We're always trying to create things that don't exist yet, and so. But that's a great question, and we get that a lot. When will you make pre-mixed tubed natural oil paint? So that is on the list.
I was going to say, I don't know if we carry it, but we had a question in the chat about the was it the different mediums you have? So like the um I think someone referred to it as like a stucco medium, and you mentioned another kind of like textural medium. Do you want to speak on those a little bit as well?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
natural
the
model
modeling paste.
it just came out. It's to use with acrylic paints, and it can be used with conventional acrylic paints too. So we designed all of our natural acrylic products to be compatible with regular acrylic paints. So you don't have to just throw away all your acrylic products. But like this can be used with regular acrylic paint. But yeah, basically it's just a plant-based resin with natural minerals. This one has marble dust and limestone powder. And so again, we just replaced all the toxic additives that are in normal modeling paste and the petroleum and uh, created these. And we have another a natural matte medium. And let's see, we have a gloss medium as well. And we're really into packaging, so we use all recycle or glass as much as we can. We use glass instead of plastic. So you'll notice that there's a lot of glass, a lot of metal, anything we can do to avoid plastic. This squeeze, we really struggled to find a squeeze bottle that was not plastic. So this is 100% recycled and recyclable squeeze bottle. So it's not ideal, but that was the best we could do. And then we have a full line of the acrylic paints in fluid as well as heavy body. So those are the same. All right. So I'm just going to squeeze out a little bit of this paint that we just mixed up. There's not much in this tube, so
Oh, also, while you're doing that, we've got a question about the Sonoma hemp oils. Again, I don't think we carry those, but I don't think I mentioned this at the top of the session. But if there is anything that is offered by Natural Earth Paints that you're curious about or that you really wish Opus would carry, do let us know. So either send us an email you can just reply to the email that we'll send out later that's got all the information for this demo, or you can talk to any of the staff in person and just let us know that you're interested in things. That's really what helps us sort of determine what new things we bring in. Anyway, they were just wondering about the Sonoma hemp oils and if you could speak on those for a little bit.
yeah, on our Natural Earth Paint website, we carry this product called Liquid Gold Hemp Seed Oil. And we actually don't manufacture that. Some friends of ours do in Colorado. It's a wonderful small company, and they process by hand these painting mediums that are organic. So it's all organic oils, 100%, and they'll spend a year or two in the processing of it to give it different properties. So they have an oil that speeds up drying time. They have the liquid gold hemp seed oil is another good one to use for mixing your paint, just like the walnut oil. It's a good option for that. They call it the champagne of oil painting mediums. So it's like really high end, lovely. Lots of artists just swear by their mediums and their oils. So yeah, check them out. So I just poured a little walnut oil in here to thin the paint, so it's in a paste form. Another good reason to mix it into a thick paste is that it just comes out of the tube better rather than just kind of pouring out. But you can see it's just like a regular oil paint. Beautiful and lush. Another great reason to mix your own oil paint is the cost. It is unbelievably more affordable uh, to mix your own paint, like a fraction of the cost of buying a tube in the store. So we actually have a blog post on our website where we break down the dollars and cents of how much it costs to make your own paint versus buy it, and it's incredibly affordable. Of course, it does take time, so it's not instant and fast, and I know we're all busy, so it's a whole different mentality of like slow art and a slow process to your craft and being connected to your source of your materials and your craft. And it's just incredibly relaxing and cathartic, just that process of mixing with the muller. People talk all the time about how they almost love that more than painting, where it's just so lovely um, to do. So it's a different way of doing things. And like I said, some people will just mix some colors and use ready-made tubes for others. So it's up to you. All right. So while I have this dirty brush, I can talk about cleaning your brushes naturally. Um, Generally, I just wipe off as much paint as I can. All right, so I just rinsed the paint out in the EcoSolve, and I don't have a sink right now with me, but that's about it. Normally, I would just wash the brush with soap and water. After that, I would put Squirtle any soap, Dr. Bronner's or any hand soap in my hand, swish it around or rinse it out with water, and there you go. It's completely clean. And it keeps all of the paint out of the ferrules. It's just really a great cleaner. Like I was saying, it's very strong and effective. So, and now we have this dirty EcoSolve water. So this is an example of I would let this sit for a week or so, and then all the paint particles will settle to the bottom. The top will be clean EcoSolve, and I'll just pour that off into another jar, and then you reuse that. Another product that we carry, now I'm seeing all this paint on my hands, is a paint cleaner or a hand cleaner that gets oil paint. Again, we don't manufacture this, but we sell it on our website. And it gets all oil paint and resin off of your skin super easily. It's a powder. You just dust it on your hands a little bit and add some water, and it gets it right off. And it's all natural. It's made from fallen pine trees in Colorado, and that's a great product too.
Oh, and the what you were dipping your brush into, that is the EcoSolve or the walnut oil?
I was cleaning my brush in the EcoSolve, but
Okay.
to thin that oil paint, I was using walnut oil just to
Okay.
paint. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and can you use this paint without using the EcoSolve?
absolutely. Yeah, you don't have to use the EcoSolve. Like I was saying, you could use any oil to use to clean your brushes. I mean, you could use any products, and all of our oil painting products are compatible with conventional solvents or other oil paints. So yes, it's all compatible. Nothing can only be used by itself. Um, one other product I could mention is our natural varnish. So as far as just eliminating all products, are all toxic products from your oil painting process, the natural varnish is another product that we spent years formulating. to create a completely plant-based, non-toxic varnish for oil paintings, because all solvents on the market today have, or all varnishes on the market have solvents in them. And so, just to avoid those VOCs and those solvents, we created this product, which is actually alcohol based with plant based resins. And it's based on a recipe from the Renaissance. So it's time tested. It's very archival and it works great. And it works wonderful on oil paintings and also woodworking. Woodworkers are in love with it too. So that's been cool. And it dries within 5 minutes. Since it is alcohol based instead of solvent based, it dries super quick, and just really easy to use. And that's at Opus as well.
And yet we actually had a question. Do you have a white that you could mix the paint that you just made today with, just so we can see how that paint would tint?
Let's see. I don't. Oh, yeah. Here's one. See if I can get some more paint out of here. Yeah, it tints just like normal. Might add a touch of oil. There you go. The white is an interesting pigment. It's, as I was saying, every pigment is different and it's has consistency and how it mixes, and white can be tricky to get smooth, I found. Maybe the most tricky. So that's one that whenever there's a pigment that's not getting smooth, I suggest that process of just adding tiny bits of oil. Like most people would think, if it's not getting smooth, I should add more oil. And actually, don't do that. Just add tiny bits of oil and just keep mixing. It ends up slowly incorporating and smoothing out better if you just do it that way. Um, I'm wanting to, let's see. Here's another product I could show you. It's the Earth and Mineral Pigment Color Sample Set. So this has all 20 colors and there's just small packets of them. So this is a nice set to just try it out. You know, it's like $20, I think. And it's a easy way to try out making different types of paint. You can make egg tempera or gouache or watercolor or casein. You can make crayons, pastels, oil pastels, so many different things using the natural pigments. And lots of watercolor artists actually use this because you can make 40 pans. I don't know if there's any watercolors here, but you can make 40 pans of watercolor with this amount of pigment. So, you know, one pan lasts you forever for a long time. So this is real popular with watercolor artists. And we also have just a make your own natural watercolor kit too, which has the pans and the gum arabic that you mix with it, and 7 colors. So it's fewer colors, but a lot more pigment, which you could then use to make many other different types of paint if you want to as well.
I was going to say we don't have I don't think we've got the watercolor kit that I, oh, nope, we do. We do indeed have the watercolor kit. I will link to that.
Right.
But we do also just have the gum Arabic powder for if you want to try and make your own using pigments you already have, or let's say you bought the oil set and you just want to sort of mix your own um you can mix your own watercolor paints using those same pigments. Ooh, we do actually have another question in the chat about the varnish. Kind of several questions at once, so I'm just gonna read them all together. Do you know if it's prone to yellowing or blooming or cracking? Because apparently this person's had some problems with that with other varnishes in the past. And is freshness a concern like it is for conventional glazes? So, like, is there a shelf life for this that's fairly short?
No, the varnish does not have a shelf life that we've discovered so far. Because it's alcohol based, it preserves it, and we don't even need a toxic preservative in there. So that's been really nice. Um, it does have, I'm trying to remember her first question. It
Oh,
does not
yellowing. Yeah.
yellow or bloom or crack. It's very archival. It is removable, like most artist varnishes are removable. So this varnish is removable with alcohol instead of solvents, since it's alcohol based. Um, so that's nice if you need to do that. But yeah, it looks yellow, but it dries clear and it works great. Yeah. Lots of testing went into that. Another product I just thought of is the natural impasto medium. So this is limestone powder that you would mix with walnut oil or any oil, just like we just mixed with the oil paint. So you would scoop out the powder, add some oil, mix it into a paste, and it looks like a white paste, but it dries completely clear once it's dry. So lots of people will use this to mix mix with the oil paint. So we'll have a mound of impasto medium here and the oil paint here, and you can mix them together to make even bigger, more impasto techniques, and also just to extend your paint basically to make more paint. And another use for this is to make gouache. So lots of people, where's the water? So if you make watercolor and then you have that liquid watercolor mixed up in a jar, if you add limestone powder to that, you have gouache. And I have recipes for that on my website too. Super simple. But yeah, watercolor plus limestone powder equals gouache. So lots of watercolorists buy this too.
Oh, and how long do you need to wait before applying the varnish to a painting?
That's a tricky question that we get that a lot. And, some people say you have to wait years to make sure every single layer of oil paint is dry before you apply a varnish because, it can be dry to the touch, but you don't know if the layers underneath are also dry. So I am not going to say. It's really up to you. Some people will wait a few months, some people will wait for years, some people will wait until it's dry to the touch. So it's really people's personal preference or what they want to risk or what they feel comfortable with. All right, let's try to think of anything
Yeah.
else.
So we've got about 13 minutes until the end. I'm just going to make sure that there's no other questions. Yeah,
Okay.
I guess kind of going back to the watercolor one. Oh, actually we have another one just coming in. Could you use these pigments to make beeswax crayons?
You absolutely can. Yeah, we have a recipe for that on our website in that recipe section. So I think we have two different crayon recipes on there, as well as soft pastel and oil pastel. So check that out. Um, one other thought I just had for just as far as trying to eliminate every toxin from your whole painting process, the priming of canvases. So normally we use acrylic gesso, which is what I use throughout my art career. And I would always open up the lid and get headaches and maybe sneeze, and I smelled that ammonia in there, and I was always a little worried, but didn't really know what was in it. But we at Natural Earth Paint have created two new types of eco-friendly gesso just to have different options for people so that it's not petroleum based and it doesn't have toxic additives in there as well. I failed to bring them today, so I can't show you, but one is called Eco Gesso. I think Opus carries that. And it is based on a Renaissance recipe. Again, we basically just stole a recipe used in the Renaissance. And instead of the rabbit skin glue that they used as the glue binder, we used methyl cellulose glue, which is a plant-based cellulose. So we just switched out those two products just since we have a large vegan customer base, and just to eliminate that. Um, so that gesso is interesting because it's the type of gesso they used back then. They wanted it to be slightly absorbent because they wanted their first layer of paint to actually adhere to the top layer of gesso. So they didn't want the paint to just sit on the surface of their primed surface. They wanted it to adhere a little to be more solid and stable, and then subsequent layers of paint on top of that would then sit on the surface of that. But so that's what that Eco Gesso is like. It's slightly absorbent, so it's different than what we're used to as far as acrylic gesso that's just a plastic impenetrable layer. So we came out with that gesso first, which we have available. And then, but what most artists are used to is that acrylic gesso feeling of just the impenetrable layer. And so we've since created another gesso called the natural acrylic gesso that is more like our acrylic paint. And so it is a solid layer that it behaves and looks and acts just like conventional acrylic gesso. And that one is coming out next month. It's actually not on the market yet. So I'll let Opus know as soon as that's available. Um, but I think that'll be really popular because it literally behaves exactly like conventional acrylic gesso, but it's plant-based without any additives. So coming soon.
Oh yeah, and for the gesso, do you find ever I'm actually going to speak for this a bit on Tracy has a question about do you find that the support will potentially stain the gesso itself? So like let's say you have a non-archival support surface. So let's say a paper that ends up being pretty acidic. How would you have the um would the gesso help sort of protect the rest of the paint from that? Or do you find that the gesso would kind of not stand up to that necessarily in the same way an acrylic gesso would?
Well, the natural acrylic gesso, the new one definitely would. It would create that solid barrier between the two so that your paint would only react to the gesso, not the substrate underneath. For the eco gesso, that's more absorbent. Actually, I think that would be fine too because it's such a thick, it looks and behaves just like regular white acrylic gesso, like a thick layer. So it does create a barrier. Like your paint is not going to go all the way through it and touch the surface of your support. So I think it would be fine for both of them, actually.
All right. And actually, there's one other question, which is, do you have any sort of medium that you could add to thin the acrylic? I know you've got some sort of textural mediums, but do you have anything that would thin it so it would be closer to like an acrylic ink almost?
Oh, I see. Well, I was just going to say our mediums will definitely thin the or the heavy body paint, But as far as the fluid paint, people will thin it with water to make it even thinner. We have yet to make a natural acrylic ink. So we don't have that out yet. I know acrylic ink is a new thing these days. Um, but you can definitely see if just adding water will help. The difference between lots of people think that fluid paint is just kind of watered down thick paint, but it's actually the exact same amount of pigment load is in the fluid as in the heavy body. So it's very heavily, highly pigmented um, fluid paint. So you won't lose a lot by diluting it. But that's one of the things we're most proud of is our with our paints is that the pigment load is excellent on all of them, and we made sure that they held up just exactly like the most professional grade acrylic paint. So that was very important to me.
I believe that is all of the questions that we have in the chat. Thank you so much, Leah, for your all of your excellent advice and all of your knowledge. It's really nice to see something that's such like a specialized product be made so accessible to so many people. Like I think often when people think about you're mixing your own oil paints, I think people can get really intimidated by that. And it's nice to have it shown that it's actually not that stressful.
Yeah, it's very easy, very simple. Yeah, awesome. Well, if anyone has any questions, actually, I'll turn my camera back up. Um, Definitely reach out. If you can email us at info@naturalearthpaint.com, and we can answer any technical questions, any issues you're having, and check out our resources page. There's lots of articles, information, recipes, video, lots of video tutorials, just step by step if you're more of a visual learner. So
Yeah. I'll make sure to link the resources page in the follow-up email just so people have access to that. But again, if anyone does have any other questions, just reply back to that follow-up email. I'll try and answer them as best as I can. Um, and just thank you so much, everyone, for being here on this wonderful Earth Day. And thank you, Leah, for hosting such an amazing session with us.
yeah, happy Earth Day, everybody. Thanks so much. This was great.
We have a lot of people who are saying thank you both for hosting and for just making these products in general. As you said, it is kind of nice to know that, you are filling a niche on the market that no one else is filling. So good to have you out there.
We're trying. We're trying to make the Earth a healthier place and our bodies healthier because I had just from my experience of my health issues and also interviewing artists over the years for our blog, we were always interviewing artists and the amount of health issues people have had from just their solvents or their acrylic paints or it's just crazy. And I'm always trying to teach young people in their 20s in art school that even though you're not feeling anything now, it could come in your late 30s, 40s, 50s. That's what happened to me. So just take care of yourself and be very conscious of what you're breathing and getting on your skin for sure.
All right. Well, I believe that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you again, Leah. And I hope to see you all again for another demo. All right. Have a wonderful Wednesday, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.